Hey guys, it's Neil again from Harder Texas Armory, and today I want to do a video review of this handgun you see in front of you guys, and that is the Karh CM9. And I feel that the Karh CM9 really is one of the best options if you're looking for a concealed carry piece, particularly one that's chambered in 9mm, just like the CM9 is. It offers a lot of value for your money. You get a lot of features that some of the other competitors may not give you. And you're going to get a carry piece that's going to be reliable, it's going to look good, and like I mentioned, you're going to get a lot of value for your money. I've actually owned this handgun here for about 2 years now, and I've got about, just under 1,000 rounds through it, and it has been absolutely reliable for me. From day one, right out of the box, I never have had any issue with this. No failure to feeds, no failure to ejects, it's just run. Now, I will mention I've always ran high quality ammo through this handgun. This is a concealed carry piece, and it's not a range toy. So, I don't know what would happen if you ran, cheaper ammo through it. But I've always run, Hornady or, Federal Premium through it. I mean, always good quality ammo through it, and it's always run great for me. I'll kind of go over some of the specs with this handgun. You'll see that overall the size of this is very, very small. And I'll have a pop-up here that should pop up listing all these specs that I'll go over. But I kind of just want to talk about some of the highlights. So your overall size is very small, and I'll put the dimensions here for y'all to look at. But I do want to mention the slide thickness. With this handgun, you're only looking at 0.9 inches on your slide thickness. So that thin profile is going to just allow you to conceal carry so much easier. I have other handguns that are that I carry, like my Smith & Wesson M&P 9C, and they work great, but the slides are all over 1 inch on those. So having this slide under 1 inch just lets you conceal this in just about any type of any of your clothing options that you would wear, particularly even in summer. You're going to be able to conceal carry with this. Even with gym shorts or slacks or something like that, it's going to just conceal a lot easier with that thinner profile, as well as this dimension here, which is very small overall, which you can see. You're right at 4 inches with the magazine. Those two dimensions there makes this gun just a pleasure to conceal carry. Another thing Karh gives you is they give you a full 3-inch barrel. So a lot of the other competitors in this size or comparable size are going to have shorter than 3-inch barrels. And that 3-inch barrel, everyone knows, the longer your barrel, the faster your round's going to go. So in a concealed carry piece, you want to have as long a barrel as possible that you can conceal carry. That way you just get a little more velocity with your rounds. The more velocity, of course, equals more penetration with your rounds, which is important with concealed carry weapon. The small size here, you get 6 rounds in the magazine, so 6 and then plus 1 in the chamber, so 7 rounds total. So that's pretty much standard in this size category. Your weight with this is just above 16 ounces. My scale, I came out to 16.8 ounces with the magazine, an unloaded magazine. So it's a little heavier than some other options out there, but that extra weight is going to soak up some of that recoil, which is important because these small handguns are very snappy. There's also no magazine disconnect, so even with the magazine out, the weapon will fire, and that is also nice as a concealed carry piece. I'll quickly also mention that Karh also has a PM9 that's kind of a big brother to this one. It's actually the same handgun pretty much and all, down to the guts of it, how it functions. But the PM9 is going to be their premium version of this, the CM9 being the entry-level version or budget version. The CM9 just doing some cost-saving manufacturing techniques to get the price point lower. And I'll have a picture of the PM9 popping up right now. That way you can kind of see some of the differences between the two handguns. There's not a whole lot of differences. It's just the PM9 is going to be more refined. Your biggest difference is probably going to be your polygonal rifling on the PM9, whereas this is traditional rifling and better sights and better machining quality. But overall, they function exactly the same. You're not going to have your weapon is not going to be less reliable going with this CM9, instead of the PM9. And that's the reason why I went with this is just the cost. So some of the things I really love about this Karh CM9 is I really love the trigger. And let me just safety check this weapon for all you guys so you can see there's no rounds in the magazine. We'll set the magazine aside and we'll pull the slide back and there's nothing in the chamber there. And we'll rack it a few times and we'll dry fire the weapon. You know, it fires, there's nothing in there. But that trigger that Karh gives you, what they call it is the safe cam trigger. And I really like it. So it's similar, it's gonna feel like a revolver trigger. Very smooth. You can see there's a lot of take up, but it's not gritty. It's very smooth, just like a revolver. You can actually stack it right there, and then it's just a crisp break. So it's a little different than most striker fired weapons. You know, this is a striker fire weapon, even though it kind of feels like a hammer fired weapon with the trigger. But it is striker. But I really like that trigger because on a concealed carry weapon like this, you know, I want to be able to, you know, when I pull the trigger, I want to be 100% sure that I want to fire the weapon. You know, some of those lightweight striker fires, you know, you don't have a whole lot of take up and you could actually, you know, fire it by accident and you don't want to have a negligent discharge, you know, ever. So having this longer trigger on a concealed carry piece, I think is a positive. And it, like I mentioned, it's very easy to get the hang of it. I mean, you just have that little extra take up, you'll hit a little bit of a stronger tension in the spring and then boom, it drops. I shoot real well with it. I really like that trigger. It is something that you'd probably want to go to your local gun shop and try out before you just purchase online to see if you would like it as much as I do. I think you will, but you definitely want to try out that trigger before purchasing this weapon. I did mention it is striker fired, so I like having striker fired weapons. To me, it's a plus, but you know, I like my hammer fired weapons too, but on a concealed on a carry piece like this, I actually prefer striker. So it is striker fired. Also, what's cool about this handgun, even though being so small, they are plus P rated. So you can run the higher pressure 9mm rounds through this safely if you wanted to. I never really use those. Occasionally I do on some of my, like my M&P 9C, I do run plus P, but this one I usually just run standard ammunition, standard 9mm defensive ammunition, but you can carry the plus P if you want to, which is also a positive. Obviously, the size is a huge positive, as well as the thin profile. Just allows you to conceal carry this really easily. The weapon is also well done. I think it looks nice. It looks, to me, like a higher priced weapon than it is. You know, that stainless steel finish looks good. So you get the two-tone look, which really looks good. The stainless trigger. It's a really nice looking weapon, you know, relative to the price. The weapon has been very reliable for me, so I think pretty much if you go through other reviews of this weapon, there's not a whole lot of negative reviews on this. So I think it is a very reliable weapon that's well thought out, and that is always a positive with a concealed carry piece like this. But I would still recommend you to thoroughly test your weapon before putting your life on the line and carrying it. You know, broke this weapon in, you know, just like the manufacturer Karh recommended, and I've never had any problems. So, but it is very reliable. The stippling on it is also very well done. You can see they've got a very aggressive texturing here on the stippling on the side, on each side of your grip here. It's not too aggressive, but it's enough that it gives you a really good grip. Your back strap here and your front are also textured and serrated for better grip. Again, very coarse texture there. You can see those little squares. It's very comfortable in the hand. It doesn't give you any hot spots. It's not going to tear up your hand when you fire it, but it's enough texture that it gives you a very solid grip. Now, I did stipple mine here a little extra because the way I fire and hold weapons, I wrap my finger around the front of the trigger guard, and I just wanted that little extra grip to hold my finger there. But overall, the stippling is done very well. Very ergonomic weapon, very comfortable in the hand, and I really like how it feels. Some of the other stuff we'll talk about once I do disassembly, but I'll quickly mention here, your barrel is really nice, a stainless steel barrel. You've got an oversized extractor, which is a positive, so you're going to get real positive extraction. Even if, you know, a round gets stuck in there for some reason, you're going to be able to rack it out because that oversized extractor with a strong spring. They do give you a dovetailed rear sight that is steel dovetail. We'll talk about the front here and the negatives. Unfortunately, it's not as nice as the rear. The sight picture is nice. You can see the front sight there through the little opening there in the rear. It's just a 2-dot sight, you know, kind of like dot the eye kind of system here. Karh is known for. I don't mind that. Some people may want to swap that out and put a 3-dot. I think Karh actually makes those now. But the standard 2-dot, I think it works great for self-defense distances. It's easy to pick up. It's easy to line them up and just, like I said, dot the eye, and you're right on target. So the rear side is well done. The negatives, I'll go ahead and talk about that front sight. So the front sight, unfortunately, is pinned and it's polymer. So that's a cost-saving deal that they did. The CM9 is dovetailed in there with the steel sight. So this is polymer and it is pinned inside onto the slide. That's definitely a negative in my opinion. Also, you know, being such a small weapon, your pinky most likely is going to hang off here. So you're only going to be able to get 2 fingers on the weapon. Unless you have some really small hands. But to me, that's a negative. It's not the end of the world because I prefer to have the small size on something like this. But I will mention your pinky is probably not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to wrap your pinky around the grip. Your recoil is going to be a little snappy with these. Of course, that's going to happen with these small 9mm. All of them are pretty much very snappy. And they also have very strong recoil springs. So if you have weak hands, you're going to have a hard time pulling back the slide. I know my mom, she struggles with a little bit of arthritis in her hands, and she cannot operate this weapon. So you definitely want to try that out, you know, too. Make sure you have strong enough muscles in your hands that you can actuate that slide, because that recoil spring is very stout. And that's going to be most 9mm in this size are going to have very strong springs. Another negative is it's not the easiest to disassemble this weapon for cleaning. It's not really hard, but and I'll do that here in a few minutes, but it is a negative. It's not as easy as, say, like a Glock 43 or something like that. It takes a little bit of work and hand strength as well to do that. Another thing I don't like about it is your magazine. One, they don't fit flush. You know, I wish they kind of fit a little better up on here. It's not that big of a deal, but a lot of people complain about that, and I will mention it. But the thing I don't like is your magazines don't drop free. So when you fire them with the button, they pop out, but then they get stuck, and you have to physically pull them out. I know some people said it gets better with breaking in, but like I said, I've had this weapon for 2 years, and it's always done that. If you fire, you know, out your magazine, you're going to have to basically pull it out by hand. Even shaking it, it's not going to. They're not going to drop free. So that's a negative. And then another thing I'll mention is the roll marks here. Now Karh has improved this on their new generation of these CM9s. If I can get my camera to focus. Always has trouble with these stainless steel slides. Maybe the reflection. Let's try it from here. There you go. So you can see on my particular CM9, the roll marking, you know, it gets the job done. It's just crude. The PM9 looks a lot nicer, and the new CM9s that Karh is coming out with, kind of like a Generation 2, they have improved that. So that's just worth noting that the older models are going to be roll marked like this, and it's just, you know, nothing special. Not the end of the world, but I will mention that. So let me show you how to disassemble this weapon. So of course we'll double check again. We're unloaded because you do have to fire the trigger to take the slide off. You'll see here there's a mark, an index mark on your slide and an index mark in your polymer. Those two marks have to line up for you to disassemble this weapon. And I have to use a little screwdriver with mine because my pin is very strong. You know, sometimes you can just push down with your finger. That's what you would push out to pop the pin out. But I can do it sometimes, but I find it easier just to use a little screwdriver. So you can see I've lined up those marks, and I'm going to take my little screwdriver and lift out the pin. And once you get it there, I can pull it out by hand. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll pull that out there. And once you get the pin out, now what I do, because sometimes it's a little finicky, back here I'll go ahead and just push the slide back just slightly to line it up with the frame. And then I'll fire the trigger and hold the trigger. And again, we already safety checked this, so we're empty. So we'll fire the trigger, hold it back, and now the slide will separate from the lower. We'll look at the lower first here. So there's your serial number. It's going to be pressed into the polymer. You can see it has metallic rails up here, which don't really add accuracy. I think it's just strength. It just keeps the slide from popping up in the front. But your rails do ride on those little slots, and a lot of these cheaper 9mm aren't going to have that, so I think that's a positive that they do have those metal rails there. There's a good look at them. And then here's your rails on the rear section, so you can see they are injected into the polymer with the polymer wrapping around it, and that's what gives you strength, keeps your slide on your lower. The polymer section here, it also rides in there, but again, that's not really supporting any stress or anything like that. They're just there to aid in the slide function, but not strength. You can look in here. Here's your sear and all that, and your transfer bar for your trigger, how that works. Pretty simple design. You can see there's a little spring here, which we'll talk about in a minute when you put it back together. I'll show you how that works. But that's your lower, your upper here, your slide is going to disassemble just like pretty much any other handgun in this design. So we'll pop out this little guide rod here, which you'll see it's a stainless steel guide rod, which is a plus. It's not fully captured. This section is captured, but your main recoil spring there is just slides on. It does grip on there pretty good on that guide rod, so it's not going to fall off, which is nice. But that does make reassembly a little bit difficult because you have to just press that entire spring. We'll show that in a second. So here's a look at your barrel. You got stainless steel barrels, well done barrel, nice quality. You've got traditional rifling in there. The PM9 has the polygonal rifling, but the CM series are going to be all traditional rifling, which is fine. You can see the machining quality is pretty good on the barrel. It's fully stainless steel, of course. It's a nice barrel. You've got a oversized feed ramp. It's not polished the best, but mine runs fine just like this, so I didn't see a need to polish it. I guess you could polish it a little better if you wanted. You can see that it's not the finest polish. You can just see a little mark there where the rounds are sliding up, that little line there. That's just where the lead's just been rubbing up against it. So that's your barrel. And then look at the slide here. It's well done. The machining on the exterior is really well done. It looks good. Your slide serrations are nice. They're grippy. On the interior, you'll see they've cut some costs by not cleaning up your machining marks. Let's see if we can get it to show up a little more in the camera. You can see there's just some machining marks. It don't really matter because it's on the inside of the slide. You don't see it unless you disassemble it, but they just didn't do all those steps that the PM series would get on polishing and finishing out the weapon, but that doesn't affect the function, so it doesn't really matter to me. You can see the oversized extractor right there. It is large. It's going to grab onto that round really, really good and rip it out when it needs to. That's a positive, and the spring tension is very strong on that. Here's a look at the striker blocker. So, obviously that's got to be depressed in, which is done by that little deal right there. When it pops up with the trigger, it pushes that and it depresses it, and now the striker can fire. If that is not depressed, the striker physically cannot go past. It's a striker block. You can see that the rails are nicely done. They're a little dirty, but everything is machined pretty good for the most part. It's a well-designed pistol. So let's quickly put it back together. So to do this, you just put the barrel back in. Most of y'all guys know how to do this already. If I can get it to go in there. There we go. Drop the barrel into its place. You'll grab the recoil spring. And again, this is not fully captured, so you just want to be careful you don't slip and have this thing fly across the room. But you've got, see all this spring tension, you've got to draw it forward to get it to go into its slot right there. Oops, see, I didn't get it that time. It's a little more difficult than your normal, there we go, normal captured recoil spring. So you want to make sure you get your end piece here into the correct slot, which is right there. Once we got that guide rod put back in your barrel, you're ready to put it back onto your lower frame here. You'll line up your guide rails. And what I do is I just kind of put it in its neutral position like this. I'll take my pin, and you've got to kind of overcome that little spring right there. So you got to push it pretty good. You can see now I've got it past that spring. And once I get to that point, I'll then use one hand and kind of draw the slide back or use this hand. You pull it back until it allows the pin to drop farther in there, and I'll get to that point. So it's kind of a three-step process. Now you'll see on your pin, your takedown pin right there, there's a little half moon that interfaces with that cutout right there on the slide. So now you just need to draw that back. Let's see if I can get this to show up on camera. Again, it's kind of hard to... There we go. And it allows it to pop in. Once you do that, push it all the way home. Verify it. The pin comes all the way through to the other side of the frame. If it is, you're in. And now we'll function test. So we'll rack the slide, fire, rack the slide. There's our reset, and fire again. And quickly, I'll just show you the reset on this. It's got a long reset. I should have said it in the negative. It's not a huge negative, but there is quite a... You basically got to release the trigger all the way out. You can see. Right there, there's the reset. So it's very loud, it's very audible, tactile, but it's long. Again, that's just the nature of the beast, the Karh trigger system, but I should have mentioned that in the negatives. But overall, I really recommend this handgun. It's a great concealed carry piece. I've really enjoyed carrying mine. It's served me well. And if you're in the market for a concealed carry piece in this size, I definitely suggest you check out the Karh and definitely give it a shot before purchasing whatever else you're thinking about purchasing. It's worth checking into. But overall, highly recommended from me, Neil at Heart of Texas Armory. I hope you enjoyed this video review. If you have any questions or comments on this, please leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer those. Y'all guys take care.